All right, awesome listeners, get ready for something amazing. Our Black Friday campaign kicks off this Monday and runs all week long. And we're giving you an incredible deal. A full year of SOFREP for just $1.99. That's 90% off. But here's the best part. Every purchase also gifts a membership to an active duty service member or an emergency responder. So it's a win-win. To grab this deal, head over to sofrep.com/Black Friday or find the link in the description. Stay tuned and happy Black Friday shopping from all of us here at SOFREP. Awesome episode of SOFREP Radio. And, it's kind of, Veterans time, holiday time right now. I'm recording with my guest. And let me introduce you to the merch store if you're a new time listener, okay? So sofrep.com/merch. Go check that out. Pick up some branded goods. Thank you for the support. It means a ton. It really does. I can't explain enough. I have to pander for you to buy it, but thank you so much. Number 2 is the book club. All right. SOFREP has put a lot of effort into, curating this book club with guys from the special operations community thinking this is what you would like to read. So go check out sofrep.com/book-club. And I have retired Lieutenant Colonel Army Jim Whaley with us today, and he is in charge of Mission Roll Call, which is an app, a website that you can go check out, and I'm going to say Mission Roll Call. Is it .org? Is that correct?
.org, yes.
.org, Mission Roll Call. And some of you may have already checked out missionrollcall.org, or you may have saw a previous episode with Jim on, and he's always a welcome guest back to the show with a lot of positive thoughts. So welcome, Jim, to SOFREP. Welcome back.
Oh, my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, you're great. Always a pleasure to have you. So let's talk a little bit about your background real quick. Army, Lieutenant Colonel.
Yeah.
Yeah, why?
Well, I was one of those guys that went to college and really didn't have a plan to pay for it, to be honest with you. And while I was at college, I got introduced to some ROTC guys via the track team I was on at the time. And at Lock Haven, Pennsylvania, small state college in central PA, and ended up receiving a scholarship where they paid for my tuition and my room and board, and made the whole process of paying for college a heck of a lot simpler. And all I owed was 4 years back, which to me seemed like it was going to be fun. I did 4 years. I thought I would do 4 years and get out, and then pursue a career doing something else. And I just fell in love with what I was doing. I loved serving with people from all walks of life. I loved flying helicopters. I loved every bit of it. And don't get me wrong, there are some times in the Army where it's there is a suck fest associated with it, right? Sure. I mean, the Army can make you suffer on the industrial scale. They know how to do it at scale. So there are times where it's difficult, but I enjoyed it immensely. Met my wife in the military, and then we served I think out of 20 years, 10 was overseas. And that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to do fun things. I wanted to do important things. And the military was the right fit for me.
And so the helicopter of choice?
I started off, yes, it was a choice. I wanted to go aviation, and luckily I was fortunate to receive that billet. And my wife was a Chinook pilot, and I met her later in my career, and so that was cool. Yeah.
You're like the movie Firebirds. Stop, bro. All gone. Bye. It's like whatever you want. Keep your radar below the mountain so you don't get shot, babe.
That's right.
She's like, I'm fine. I got this. I'm gonna save you.
Let me show you how. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I had did that for 20 years and had a wonderful time and surfed all over the world. And like I said, some places better than others. Built a family along the way. One was born when I was in Panama. Another one was born when I was in Germany. The last was born when we were at West Point, and she ended up graduating West Point on her birthday.
Pretty awesome.
She's the only person that was born at West Point and graduated West Point on her birthday. When you think of the long history of that storied institution.
Also, your wife taking time out of her life and career
Yeah. Yeah.
to incubate and to curate these children that we didn't
Yeah,
have to
and
stop our
kids,
life. We didn't have to stop our life, did we? No, we kept going, huh? You got to keep
Yeah.
going. She had kind of had to halt back a little bit and pull her career back for
Oh,
the
yeah,
family's sake.
absolutely.
That's a huge sacrifice.
Huge sacrifice.
Huge.
And I have nothing but admiration for spouses
Yes.
in the military. I mean, all of them put their careers on hold because you move every few years. Really difficult to find a great job in that process. You're usually living in quarters that are much smaller than you ever wanted to. And then you're moving again, and that's costly.
And she might have been on a career path that
Oh, yeah.
changed
I mean,
when
she
got
would have had a
pregnant.
great career in the military. No doubt about it.
Yeah, and so a lot of us don't take that in consideration about the female who is serving, who
Yeah.
all it takes is just getting pregnant to change her whole life.
Oh, yeah.
To
And the Army has I can only speak for the Army
yeah,
from my perspective, but I know they've tried, and they certainly talk a great game on supporting women when they have children
yes,
and are pregnant. And on paper, it looks great. In practice, not so good, because they leave it up to local commands. And so being able to take that maternity leave is sometimes not honored. And if it is honored, then sometimes it's not. It's a detriment to your career. So we need to figure that out. The Army needs to get into modern times and figure out ways to support families on a whole host of things, which I'm happy to talk about. A whole host of things.
let alone like a woman trying to move in a career field, and then she gets one of us to like, hey, you want to have a kid?
Yeah, and I'm not. Yeah, I would urge. Yeah, at some point we should have a somebody who's gone through that, right? A woman that's gone through that and put
Yes.
her career in jeopardy to try to do that. I think your listeners would like that. But when you
I
think
would
about
like to see that.
yeah, when you think about finances right now, and of course we just had an election.
Yeah, we just had the presidential election here in the U.S. and
Right.
what's his name? Donald Trump has been elected to
He has.
the White House again since Grover Cleveland. Let's just call it what it is. He's a felon who has been elected to the White House.
Well, I think there's probably there's many perspectives on Donald Trump. I will say this: I'm hopeful that the economy will get better, because right now we have 24% of our active duty military
Yeah.
with food and financial insecurities. This is not a statistic that I made up or some think tank came up with. This is Department of Defense numbers.
Oh, well, Jim, let me tell you about my dad being a Green Beret. Okay, growing up, 80s and 90s, we went to the food pantry for the Mormon Church more than one time. Right? When my dad was laying in bed with my mom, they broke down his 24/7 pay to be $2.13 an hour while he's sleeping or not. Right? So, it's not just this guy coming in is going to change anything. He would have changed it already. He already had a chance. Right? Like a judge.
Well, I
When
don't
judges
want to get
in,
I don't want to get into
I always like to get judges out and put a new judge in, because that first judge had 4 years of doing whatever.
Yeah.
And now you get a new judge who's going to be all like, I got the country. But this guy has already had a platform of bigotry and hate and mocking people and people with disabilities, people that are women, people who choose to be what they want to be in life. Like when my father taught me to free the oppressed, that means freedom of choice. It's not to be mocked or made fun of or belittled or say you can't, go here or there. When people say, like when Donald Trump says we don't want, unisex bathrooms, it's like, well, don't you want the little baby boy being changed by his father or mother in their bathroom?
Yeah.
So I think that it goes all the way to the root of that evil. And I know that you have like a Pew result that was prior to the election that says like, military personnel are, in favor and all these different things. And obviously something's happened where Donald Trump got reelected.
Yeah, overwhelmingly.
And everybody I talk to in Utah is like disassociated from the U.S. right now. They're like, I just don't understand how so many people could want the rhetoric out of his mouth. How do we justify that? How does the Mormon Church here in Utah, how does the Catholic Church justify his antics as wholesome and Christian when he is a philandering, individual who cheats on his wife and with, no cause or regard for anybody else but himself. And
Yeah.
you can't deny it. It's facts. These are all facts.
Well, let's leave it at this. We have differences of opinion, and we are an apolitical.
But not differences of
organization.
facts, right? You and I can have differences
So
of opinion,
I think
but not
it would be
the
it would be
facts.
more beneficial for me to talk about veterans issues,
Right.
and not the political landscape. If we can do that.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, it is
would
what
be
it is. The veterans are going to be like, let's say that there's veterans out there that want to reach out to you because he's been elected and they're depressed because of it. What happens now?
Yeah, well, we're always here for veterans for a variety of reasons, and we have a lot of coalition partners that help us direct veterans to the right place. And when you go to our website, you can see that we're really a hub for veterans. So let's say you're a veteran getting out of the service right now, and you think about starting a business. Well, we have webcasts and podcasts and other nonprofits that we work with to help you kind of find that path of how do you start a business. We also have, some great podcasts and YouTube series on getting VA benefits and understanding how to do that. The challenge with military veterans getting out of the service is that the Transition Assistance Program, TAP, is really not up to speed. It is not helping a lot of veterans really find their way. So let's think about this. If 24% of active duty military have food insecurity issues, which means that's a financial insecurity. The DoD describes it as food insecurity issues. But the fact remains, if you can't pay for food, you don't have enough money, because that's the first thing you're spending money on. So if you think about that, and then you think about the pay that they're receiving while they're in the military and they get out, you can understand why they're behind the 8 ball on making this transition after a few years.
Well, shouldn't Congress be like increasing the pay to people? Like
They are. They should.
how come
And
they're
that's
dragging
what
their feet, you think?
that's one of the things we've been advocating for, and it's one of the most important things to our veterans.
There should be bipartisan on that, right? That should be a simple, like, oh, it's a veteran, no matter who they believe in. I mean, Congress
Right.
should say, let's give them a 10% increase.
Right, and I think there needs to be a real hard look on why that has not happened. I think there also needs to be a look into why people aren't staying in the military. The fact is that the retention rate is really low. I'm sure part of that has to do with the fact that they're not paying soldiers, airmen, Marines enough to survive, but it's also the up tempo. When you have less people to do the job, if your organization is supposed to have 20 people and you only have 10, well, everybody's doing double the work.
I blame automation.
Right, and so they need to figure that out. Either you reduce what needs to get done, or you need to add the people. But I also feel that, at the back end, then you see veterans struggling to get the help healthcare where they need it, when they need it, how they need it from the VA. So if you think of those two things as bookends, it should be no surprise that recruitment numbers are very low. And the services are not hitting their mark. More advertising is not going to fix that. It's a systemic problem.
Yeah, we know we have an army.
Right. And so there needs to be a better look at that.
Versus like on a NASCAR hood for $250,000.
Yeah, I get
it's like,
I get it. They need to advertise to youth because that's who's joining the military for the most part. But
Yes.
they need to be.
But that's what recruiters are for. At the local schools, they set up a table with a banner and some pamphlets and some
Well,
Tootsie
yeah, but
Rolls.
some schools don't allow recruiters in.
Well, only private schools.
Yeah. So
If they get any federal funds, then the federal funds could be pulled if they don't allow recruiters in.
yeah.
So any school that's public is allowing recruiters. It would be private charter schools where they get vouchers that can
Yeah.
block that recruit from going in there, where they're actually giving a higher education to that student who we could use in the military,
Right.
right? But
Yeah,
they're
and I think
blocking
that they're going to need to relook. What does it mean to serve? What is it that are the incentives? I mean, right now the big incentive for a lot of young people to join the military is the GI Bill.
Yes.
which gives you, of course, access to funding when you continue in your education, and that's great. And I'm not advocating in any way that we reduce that, but if you think about it in logical progression, if you're incentivizing somebody to leave to go to school, you shouldn't be surprised that they're leaving and going to school.
Right.
So what else are you off counterbalancing that? What is the incentives to stay in? And they need to take a look at that. It's a dangerous world out there. We need to have a military that's robust. We need to have a military that has the best and brightest serving in it.
And it's dangerous.
It's dangerous, and you need to educate coaches and counselors and parents on what the advantages are of serving in the military. And right now, I don't think enough emphasis is on that. But we're really concerned at our organization of how we help veterans, and certainly early transition veterans is part of that. You have about 200,000 veterans every year getting out of the military, so it's a lot of people. But you have a lot of veterans in the country. There's 18.5 million veterans in our country.
I was going to say like 20 million, but yeah, 18.5.
Right, and that number is declining because of the just the demographics of.
Well, and the wars died down, right? We're not really in Afghanistan, so the veterans aren't being Pez dispensered out, if you will.
Yeah,
right?
And you've had a lot of most World War II and Korea veterans
Vietnam,
passing away, and so are Vietnam veterans.
Now it's coming up to the Desert Storms.
Right. So you have about 18.5 million veterans in the country. Half of those are not represented by the VA.
Why?
So they're not registered with the VA. They're not served by the VA. So
is that the veterans' fault, or is that the VA's fault for not staying in touch with the veteran? What do you think? Should the veteran who's listening to this, who's not registered and got out, be like, I should go register with the VA?
I think there needs to be an education program on that, on the importance of that. I'm reluctant to point a finger and say it's your fault or your fault. I think it's an individual decision. Some people left the military, they feel fine, they don't want to deal with that, and they don't like the bureaucracy. They have their own health care, so they move away, and they don't need it. On the other hand, I think the VA could do a lot better job on making sure they're reaching out to veterans early on. I mean, the DoD and the VA don't talk to each other, and that has been the case since inception. I mean, even your medical records for many, many years didn't transfer. And it's only transferred now is when you put in for a claim or you register with the VA. So if you think about a $350 billion budget that the VA has, and you only serve half of the veterans that are in our country, there needs to be a look at where that money's being spent, and is it being spent wisely? Mm-hmm. Is there a better use of that money? What are the programs that are working that you can reinforce, and what are the programs that you probably need to relook and maybe cut? But clearly there needs to be improvement in the efficiency of the VA and the ability of the VA to reach veterans where they need health care and where they want to get their health care. I mean, right now it's a brick and mortar kind of model.
Yeah.
And you got to go to them, and in some cases that's too far for a veteran, or they can't get there, or they're too sick they can't. Right.
Right. I got friends who are from Navajo Nation, and it's difficult for them to get to the VA. Sometimes a representative will come onto the reservation, but it's like, where is that representation? Let alone, for those guys and gals that served.
Yeah, and then, I think a look at what holistic medicine looks like, right? Rather than always treating the symptom when it gets to the point where it needs surgery or something, rather than getting to it earlier on, is something we're exploring and taking a look at with other organizations. We look at our organization as a conduit for the 40,000 other veteran support organizations that make up our country. There's about 40,000 veteran support organizations. Now, the vast majority of them are very small mom and pop foundations. Yeah. Maybe they're providing a couple service dogs to a local community. Maybe they have a horseback therapy, in one community, and they're doing God's work, and they do excellent work. But The majority of them are quite small. The bigger organizations, the ones you would think about, they're the ones that we're working with to make sure that people can find that path. So we, through our new website, provide news to veterans so they can see that's impacting that community. We highlight organizations that they can get involved with. I'm a firm believer in my organization is that if we can just do a better job on getting a veteran when they get out of the military and plug them in to a brotherhood, a sisterhood of other veterans, another organization, including ours, they're going to do much better. If we could just make that happen, if there's one thing I could ask the DOD and the VA to do is, allow veterans when they're getting out of the service to sign a piece of paper and share those names with a couple vetted veteran support organizations so we can reach out to them. So when Charlie or Sally gets out of the military and they go to Utah or they go to Salt Lake, there's a VSO that calls them up, reaches out to them, says, hey, understand you're in the Salt Lake region. We'd like to take you out to lunch, find out what your aspirations are, tell you a little bit about ourselves, and plug you into the community, help you along the way.
I would take that job myself.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great job, right?
I would take that job to reach out and say, hey, what's up? As an advocate within the VA for the veterans.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, from my transition, and I had a wonderful job. I was leaving, running communications, public affairs for West Point.
So cool.
I had just made a promotion to 06, but decided to retire. Had a wonderful job working for a Fortune 50 company, very large company, had a great job, and there was something missing. I could not believe that no one reached out to me from the Army, right? I mean, here I was gone, and no one called and checked, and nobody reached out. When months go by and you feel like you're disengaged, and the only people you're talking to are your buddies and folks that you serve with, but the institution itself completely cuts off communication. As soon as you resign or retire or whatever it is, you're gone. The only thing you're going to get is you're getting your paycheck or your retirement check. That's it. Right. And that's not even a letter. That goes to a bank. So they could do a much better job of staying in touch and building that alumni and directing people to veteran support organizations. So right from the start, you have somebody who's going to reach out to you and find out, what's needed, what can we be helpful with. I think that would go a long way. Because a lot of veterans struggle with that. Every veteran I know went through a mourning period of leaving the military. And it might be that it was a short-lived mourning period, right? They left and they couldn't wait to get out, but they missed aspects of it as time went on.
Yep.
They kind of forgot the bad things, and they remembered the buddies, and they remembered this, and they remember that. And there's a mourning period. If it was a career for you, then it's even more so. It's like losing someone. It's that impactful.
100%.
And I think we need to understand that, and we need to try to mitigate that, because if you think about it, they have thrown millions of dollars, the VA, DOD, others, at suicide prevention, and still the numbers are astronomically high, anywhere from 18 to 25 a day. So obviously what you're doing is not working. I think that breaking up that chain, if you think about it, you get out of the military, maybe it was really impactful to you. You go to your first job, it doesn't work out. Then you struggle to get your next job, and now your circle of friends and maybe family is not as tight as it was. You've lost your folks that you served with. Now you're in financial straits. You could see where that spiral goes to a deep and dark place that's hard to get out of. Yep. Add in any other number of things: substance abuse, alcohol abuse, injury, any number of those things, financial destitution.
Literally just had conversations with like a few veterans just yesterday regarding the election and their depression, like just how they're talking. And it's interesting to hear that it's just like they're just, how can you stop somebody, Jim? How can I tell you that you have to do what I say?
Well, how can you?
And that means like stay alive. And you're like,
Yeah,
you're
and it doesn't
steadfast,
work,
bro.
Yeah, it doesn't work, and you can't just tell somebody depressed, "Hey, just be happy." You got a lot to be happy for. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, that's why I said I would love that job, because I feel like I have an empathetic heart to people.
Yeah, and I sense that, and I'm sure your viewers do, and your listeners. I feel like if we could just break up that chain and get to them, and
let them know they're loved.
yeah, and I think the great thing about all veterans I've met and served with and work with now, they're great at helping other people. All veterans are great. You give them a mission, say, "Hey, man, we need you to go over there and help these people out." They are on it. They will drop whatever they do.
Yes.
But they're awful at helping themselves.
Right. Well, they won't go to the VA. They get out. They're still like maybe in their 20s or 30s. And they might have got out with a medical and they got over that. And they didn't want to go to the VA because I'm good. I got this. I suck it up. But then they're 60. And then their sweet 60-year-old wife is pushing them in the wheelchair. And she's trying to take care of herself and that person because they didn't go sooner.
Yeah. You just nailed me. I didn't file any VA claims until last year.
Yeah.
And I just felt like, hey, well, I got all my fingers and toes.
Right.
I've never been severely injured.
Like, it's not
me. and oh, by the way, there's guys that really need it. I'm not one of them. But now you got an uphill climb.
Yep.
To address the issues that are affecting you and to make a claim. And I think the VA needs to recognize that.
Correct. And they should start making a claim right now. If somebody out there is listening to this, and they have not made their claim, they should just start and say, "Hi, I'd like to."
Absolutely.
I'd like to start today.
Right, and they can go to our website, and we have a wonderful video that walks people through on our YouTube page that talks about how to do that, and it's step by step. And even if you have done it, I would urge you to go and listen to that, because it's a wonderful, simplified process and walks you through the do's and don'ts. It's a short video. It doesn't take a lot of time. It can change your life. And we ask people to do that. And they can always contact us, and we can put them in contact with other VSOs that actually help with claims. And almost every county has a VSO at the county military organization.
That's right.
Some veterans hospitals. There's a huge veterans hospital here in Charlotte. I live in South Carolina.
Okay.
So my veterans hospital, VA hospitals in Charlotte. I just recently went there the first time. There is no veteran support or there's no claims officer for that whole hospital. You have to go outside organization to do that. So that's mind-boggling to me.
It is.
And I said, huge building, hundreds and hundreds of people working there.
Not one office.
Not one office that helps walk you through that. And it seems to me, isn't that what you're supposed to be doing? But I think it's things like that they need to look at and address. And if it's happening here, I'm sure it's happening at scale.
Oh, I'm sure.
In many organizations.
Plus the weekend comes in, and then you're an idol. You're like, what's going on with my rating? It's the weekend. Everybody's gone home at 5 o'clock, and it's like.
And I'm not taking away from the great people that do work for the VSO. There are wonderful people in every organization.
Oh, I get that.
But if
they still clock out at 5.
Yeah, and the system is not conducive. I don't know who would be the next VA secretary. It's a very difficult job. It's very difficult to succeed in it. But I would hope,
Musk, bro.
What?
I said probably Elon Musk, Jim.
Yeah, he maybe. I don't know.
In charge of the veterans. Think about that.
I do think that you need somebody that can at least bring people in and talk about customer service. They need to have a customer service mindset, right?
I mean, feel like I'm gonna have to wait 4 more years for that.
So we need to figure.
We need customer service, brother.
Yeah. So
like literally someone who's going to care and listen, not just say this is how it is.
Yeah. So hopefully the VA can. They're striving hard to make changes, and I applaud a lot of the things that they've done to improve. I just think, like most veterans, and we see that the access to care is one of the top things that veterans are concerned about.
Oh, I've had benefits. The VA's director on the show. I have talked to him personally, especially during like the time of COVID, right? When he was serving under former President Trump who's going to be future President Trump. So at the time, he just said, you know, Rad, I just looked at it like I wore U.S. before anything else. It was U.S. Army, U.S. Marines. We all came together. We had no political anything except just the belief of the U.S. of A, basically. And I was like, okay, cool, bro. But he's like, I still had 308,000 employees, and I was losing like 1,000 of them to COVID. And that's serious stuff, right? And he's sitting there saying like, we want, you know, adaptive recreational therapy for veterans, right? It's like, why should it be at 60% or higher to get adaptive ski chairs for somebody? Why do you have to have a missing limb, you know, to be considered, oh, now you can have the bucket to go skiing now, but you have all your limbs and maybe you have a concussion to TBIs and you want to go out and enjoy the outdoors. They're like, well, your rating's 40%. I mean, like, really?
Yeah. And you think about it, you mentioned TBIs, and you just, I think it was 2 days ago, Bernie Marcus passed away, the founder of Home Depot. Bernie Marcus did more for TBI than any living person on this planet. He provided millions of dollars to TBI research, built brick and mortar through the Avalon Alliance, and just awareness. 100%. I mean, he did some great work. And, you know, I think it's those public-private partnerships that bring in new ideas, new skills, that really can challenge the way government thinks about things and the way they approach things. And so,
well, and Home Depot has a huge veteran presence. You know, like I think if you go to the parking lot, they even have like handicap, expecting mothers, and veterans.
And military, and that's great. And you see that, you know, their folks will wear their vest that shows that they're military, and pride in that, and that's great. We should see more companies take that. And that's the other thing that I think brings up a point. We need to, Department of Defense, VA, and veteran support organizations really need to try to come together and educate corporate America and business on what veterans bring to the workplace. So we've heard an awful lot about PTS, challenges veterans have, suicide. If that's all you're hearing, you're thinking that all veterans you meet are on the brink
of
taking their life or what have you. And the fact of the matter is, the vast majority of veterans are great employees, bring loyalty to an organization, are diverse thinkers, have worked in diverse organizations, had to think on their feet quickly, can be relied upon. And I think there could be a whole lot of benefit to having a national effort on hiring veterans and exploring those partnerships of how, I mean, some companies do a great job of hiring veterans. I worked for Siemens for a number of years, and back in 2004, 2005, CEO at the time committed to hiring 10% of all new employees being veterans, right? I mean, that was an enormous undertaking in 2004, 2005, and I believe they continue to do that today. So it can be done. You just got to put some effort behind it, and I'm sure they have reaped a lot of benefits of bringing high quality people in.
Well, like yourself.
I mean,
with all due respect to that comment, you know, you were the CEO and you had transitioned out yourself, and here you are, a veteran. You work, you know, in the civilian sector or the civilian world, trying to, you know, do.
Yeah, I've been fortunate to have, you know, great opportunities and a lot of luck. Or blessings, however you want to look at it. I always think of it as a blessing. And I believe that I was fortunate to have learned some great things while I was in the military, and how to lead people with empathy, how to get the job done, hold people to a high standard. People want to be held to a high standard, by the way, and they want to be challenged, but they want to know you care about them. And I think that lesson in leadership, you could go to any MBA, spend tens of thousands of dollars, but at the end of the day, treating people the way you want to be treated is what it's all about.
That's right.
And I feel that the military helped me with that, helps a lot of people with that. And so it'd be great to see more and more companies embrace hiring veterans and putting them into tough positions and letting them thrive. I mean, some of the best people I worked with and for didn't have doctorates in psychology, but boy, they knew how to motivate people. I saw some sergeants with a high school education that were some of the smartest people I ever met in my life.
You know what I would say is that a friend of mine, Jacob, he served on Guantanamo Bay as in a police fashion in the Army. Okay, I won't say his exact job detail, but what happened is he told me once he was stuck over there during COVID. He's like, Rad, just be the kindness that you want to see in the world today, bro. Because here he is just dealing with a situation, a prison. It's not a happy place.
Yeah,
you got people incarcerated, but you also have to work in the incarcerated system, so you're also in prison, and so, I mean, really, right? It's true. So I just want to piggyback on the kindness thing. He comes from a very tough environment, and he's just like, be the kindness that you want to see in the world today. And I'm like, I'm going to steal that, bro.
Yeah. So I think that's important in every walk of life. But I think when I step back and I look at what Mission Roll Call is trying to do, it's a big task. I mean, we're trying to be the voice of the American veteran through our polling to make sure those voices are heard. As I mentioned earlier, there's 18 million veterans. We're trying to reach all of them so their voices can be heard. That's a powerful block of people, because it's not just the 18.5 million people, it's their spouse, it's their dependents, it's their caregivers. So that's probably around 40 million.
Yes.
When you look at it, and that's a powerful block of voters. It's a powerful block of voices that need to be heard. And I think if we can bring that together and not dissipate it across so many other different places, that's why we do a lot of polling with our veterans. And anybody can join Mission Roll Call. Just go to the website. It doesn't cost a thing. And you can take a poll. And pretty soon you'll be able to do that live in time on our website.
Oh, that's cool.
And you can do it via your phone. So it's not just text messages, and you can do that. We use that then to go to the press and talk about these things. But more importantly, we then can break that down by congressional district and then go to that congressman or congresswoman and say, listen, this is what the veterans in your district are saying.
Very cool.
And we need your help here. And in many cases, we don't get pushback on that. We get, oh, I didn't know that. I mean, they're dealing with a lot of problems too. So, but when you bring that to them and say, this is important to your constituents,
yes,
then most of them want to be helpful with that. Veterans are held in high regard in our country, higher than, almost any, or certainly higher than any government institution. Right? I mean, you think about veterans, right? And then you think about where
if you raise
Congress
your hand
is.
in any type of 90-degree fashion and said, I swear my life.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's held in high regard. And I think we need to be more vocal as an organization, as a group of people.
Yes.
And that's what's great about us. What separates us from any other organization is that we do not filter any of our responses. So let's just take another VSO, a big VSO. I won't tell you which one, but most of the big ones, you have chapters, you have regions, and they come together and they come in together and they say, here's our 3 big issues for this organization in Ohio. Well, of course, that goes up to the region, and the region says, well, yeah, but not those 2, maybe this one. And then it goes up to the national, and they go, no, none of those are important. This is what's important. We don't do that. We ask our veterans important questions that affect them and affect veteran community, and we publish those results. And then I reach out to the press and say, this is what our veterans are telling us. Yeah. So it's not my opinion. It's not my team's opinion. It's not something that we may or may not agree with. It's what the majority of our veterans are telling us, and we bring it down to percentages so that they can use that information to make those decisions. And it's important, I think, for the press to understand that. I talk to a lot of press. I can count on one hand the people that work in the press that have had any military experience, that have served, that know somebody who's served. most of them have no clue. And I don't hold that against them. I look at that as an opportunity to educate them. But we need to get the word out a little bit better. I think as a community, we're used to be given a task and getting it done and doing it quietly and not say, look at me.
Right.
So, but we need to make sure our voices are heard. And so that's what we're doing. And we've had a lot of success with that. We've increased the number of people that are paying attention to us. We've been getting some advocacy done on behalf of veterans in DC. And we're going to continue to do that with both Democrats and Republicans. And they value that because they know we're apolitical. We may have our own personal beliefs, but we don't wear that on our sleeves, and we don't favor one over the other. We just want it to be addressed, these issues, and for them to work together to address these issues.
This sounds like you have that same U.S. mindset. I was interviewing a gentleman that helped transition President he was going from Bush to Obama, and he was underneath Bush at the time, right? And he said the same thing that the director of the VA said, which is, Rad, when we had the booklet to pass over to the next presidency, we understood that the U.S. was on our name tape. It was U.S. That's who we are. And so whether we have a belief in our own self, at the end of the day, it comes down to the machine of the USA is what he was putting first. Right. And
we always put mission first, right?
That's it.
And that's the way we are, and that's the way we've been built. Every branch of service is like that.
My dad was like that. He was very apolitical. He
Yeah.
would always tell me, you know what, Aaron? I'm all, what? He's like, you don't have to tell anybody. It was Dukakis and Reagan. And I was like, who are you voting for, Dad? And he's like, I don't have to tell you. And I was his son.
Yeah.
And to the day he died, I would take him to vote. And I would just guess who'd you vote for. He's like, I don't have to tell you. He would never, ever, 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 ever. He kept that. And I kind of do the same. I may have opinions, or I want a conversation about a situation or things that are out there. But at the end of the day, it's our right just to kind of hold it to ourselves. We don't have to.
Yeah, just because you think it doesn't mean you got to say it.
There it is.
I mean, sometimes people don't think about the second and third order effects of what they say. I mean, we see that with families and friends and all of that.
Yes.
I feel that it's important to recognize that the military represent the fabric of our country. I think it represents the best of our country. Anybody who raises their hand and writes that blank check that says, I'm going to serve my country, regardless of what they did in the military, at the far end being a Delta Force member, or flying an aircraft, or being an infantryman, or
mopping rain,
or being a submariner, or being a POL handler, or a cook,
a loader.
They're all noble efforts and noble profession. And I feel as a country we need to do better to make sure that those folks that have done that are here, are taken care of. They're getting the access that they need to healthcare, and they're being employed and recognized for the skills that they bring to employees. I think we can prove all those things.
Yes.
But we're only going to do that if our voices are heard. It's just not going to happen on its own.
We already talked about that. The military, the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, the Marines, the Space Force are not quite reaching out to you. You have to be that voice and reach out to them, and reach out to Mission Roll Call, and go look at their website and go watch that YouTube tutorial. I'm going to go watch it. I'm going to see exactly what Jim was just talking about, because, I mean, I could go to the VA, but I have health insurance.
Yeah, I do too. Most people do, but it doesn't mean you can't. Right.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. And it's important I think it's important to, as a community, help each other.
Yes.
And that's what we're trying to do. I mean, in the military, you never thought about yourself. You thought about your guys to your left and right.
That's right.
What gals that you work with. And it was mission first and people always. And you took care of each other. We need to continue that mindset. That's what makes us great. And we need to continue that mindset when we get out of the military, because that is what sets us apart from so many other people, is we have this selfless service. We want to help others.
That's right.
One way of doing that, I think, is to have your voice heard and reach out to other veterans and say, you need to be part of this. This is important because you're going to help the next generation. You're going to help that old guy down the street who's a veteran that might have got slipped through the cracks.
That's right. You don't need to take yourself out. You need to go get a colonoscopy.
Well, and you need to, and you need to take care of yourself.
I'm just saying, sir. You know, with all due respect and joking, you know, I just went and had let's see, what did I have? I had a CT scan of my heart because it's in my family. My dad suffered stroke, seizures at 40. So full on, he was running marathons just a few months before and then collapsed in the shower. His medic showed up to the door that day because the 911 call from my mom. They're like, oh, Radel, let me get there. And it was his own team guy. So he's the medic on call. So he shows up.
It was a small world, right?
Oh, it's especially late in Utah, you know, they're all working different jobs, you know, how SF guys are. So Shumway shows up. He's like, Radel, I got to tell this to the ups. And he's like, I'm good. My dad's like leaning in the door, white as a ghost, trying to say, I'm okay.
Yeah.
40
He's
years
not
old.
okay.
And I never saw my dad. My dad didn't drink. My dad didn't smoke. My dad went to church every Sunday, donated his tithing every single month, served in the bishop's warehouse to get people food after he got out of the military. Always had some type of a serve mentality. And at 63, he was gone from heart issues. But I watched my mom become his caregiver 100% and his VA advocate. And then when she learned everything from being a VA advocate for him, others that she would meet would ask her for help. And so she would just say, well, this is what you probably need to do for your case. She would help get people to the 100% rating without a dime. My mother would walk like a lawyer with a bag of stuff to these people and meet with them.
God bless her.
Very much, yeah. She's with my dad now. But I would watch her push that wheelchair up and down those long hallways at Salt Lake's VA. Yeah. Or I would help push with my dad. Hey, Aaron, can you take dad to the doc? Yeah, no problem.
Right.
And I'm like, geez, Mom, is this what you're doing all the time? I've gotten married and having kids, and you're pushing dad through the wheel. I took it all for granted.
Yeah, and thank God for souls like that in our society that care about others. And you do need to be an advocate for yourself.
Yes.
And that's why some organizations are important to help magnify that advocacy. And that's really what we're trying to do. And we're advocating, you know, there's a lot of veteran support organizations out there, and some of them, quite frankly, don't talk to each other and are competitive with each other. They consider their, you know, this is their audience they're going after.
Drama.
We don't look at it that way. No. We look at success. Well, there's not a finite amount of success in the world. There's not a finite amount of love in the world. So we're helping organizations advocate on their behalf for them, because we have two guys that are in DC that are reaching out to elected officials. So we'll help other veteran support organizations do that. And then I'll talk about other veteran support organizations when I do media interviews. Like before the election, I talked about Vet the Vote a lot. I mean, that's a nonprofit that was putting veterans in polling stations across the country. Making sure that the voting system worked, and making sure that
maybe you could be in charge of the VA.
No, thank you.
Listen, don't say, hey, just say, well, why not me? Okay. Every time my dad said, why are you not wanting to do it? And I said, well, I don't know. And he's like, well, why don't you know? I was have you tried?
Yeah. I think I can better serve what I'm doing now.
All right.
This organization, but I will absolutely help who's ever in there to help tell their story, to help them reach veterans, to help them, you know, tap into the sentiment of what veterans are feeling, so that they can. I mean, because if you're leading any organization and you're just listening to the people that you have hired, you're not getting the story. You have got to get out of your office and go and talk to somebody you've never met before that's going through the system and say, what's working, what isn't working, what can I help you with, and finding out those things.
Like undercover boss, dude.
There's a lot of benefits to managing walking around.
Yeah.
And if you're just looking at stats and numbers and performance indicators and all those sort of things, you're not getting you're not getting ahead of the
what's
power
the KPI on, the suicide these days? You know, it's like, well, sir, I want to keep my job, so it's down.
Yeah, and I feel like they need to make sure that happens. And they certainly have a number of, they're a huge organization and getting bigger, the VA.
Yeah.
All of them should be ambassadors of that program and making sure they're reaching out to veterans on their own.
I mean, really,
to
I
help
think we're onto
do
something. They
that.
should have the higher ups kind of, how about process veterans that are getting into the system? How about process veterans that are getting into the
Yeah,
system?
exactly.
And then go back to your desk and say, hey, you know what? I did this for 2 weeks, okay?
Yeah,
I sat down there and the same issue of like this checkbox doesn't even matter. Why are we making them fill out this checkbox?
right, exactly right. You can be, or just the simple of how far is the parking lot from the front
Seriously,
door? What is
seriously.
it? Do we not have a valet that can come and like
You know
get that
what?
guy out? I mean,
In all
you
honesty,
see these
that is
poor
the truth.
bastards walking with the tennis ball thing on the front of their
Yeah,
walker, and they got walking a quarter of a mile to get to the damn place. I mean,
exactly. Yeah, or
just
the,
simple things like that.
you're exactly right. Why is there not a valet?
I mean, just make it easy. And let's be honest, everybody wants to direct you to your website. You got a problem, go to the website.
Yeah,
Well, if you're 75 years old,
yeah, exactly.
that's you might as well, ask them to do algebra for you.
And the last thing someone getting stints put into them needs to do is walk across the parking lot. Okay?
I'm laughing, but it's
I'm laughing. I'm with. Well, my dad had like 4 or 5 stents and open
Yeah.
heart surgery. I mean, I can
Right.
talk about it, bro. I am the son of the SF, and I have seen my father go from 100% marathon runner, Green Beret, to,
yeah. Well, life's a fickle thing, right?
isn't it though?
It is.
I see, and then my friend's dad. I'm not going to say his name. Smoking, drinking, doing all sorts of things. Still 70-something years old, playing cards, playing in a band. Not.
Yeah, life sometimes doesn't
It's so
seem
crazy,
fair,
bro.
and you wonder what God thinks. But
Even my
what
friend's
God
dad's
does.
son was my friend's dad's son was like, dude, Radel, like my dad drinks and smokes and stuff, and your dad
Yeah.
didn't even. I'm like, hey man, we have to
Yeah.
just embrace what we have every single day, and that we're
Exactly.
above this ground because we've been a billion years locked in our mind for a long time, and then all of a sudden here we are,
Yeah.
and we're gonna go back for a billion more. So make the most of what you're here for.
Yeah, I think as veterans, I think as a community, want to take care of each other. They want to get involved in the community. They want to continue to grow and flourish. They just need a tribe. I mean, most veterans need two things: a tribe and a hilltop. They need a group of people that are going to take care of each other, and
Mission roll call.
they need a mission. They need something to do,
Purpose.
a purpose,
Yes.
and a calling. That's the hill.
God.
Defend the hill or take the hill.
Yeah, really.
And if you keep that in mindset, and you can get veterans involved with something in the local community. So I would urge any small company or large company, reach out to us if you have veterans in your organization and you're trying to figure out how to retain them or how to mobilize them. Because I'll tell you, I've worked in 2 Fortune 500 companies. In each case, I always led the veteran support group. And some of them were thousands in number, where I would get all of them to volunteer. Either they were active, they were a veteran, or they just wanted to be involved in veterans causes because
Right.
their husband was a veteran or their son was
Or
a
they had
veteran.
asthma and they could never serve. It's
Right,
like,
whatever. Their heart is
yeah.
pure of why they want to do it,
100%.
and we let them do it. And sometimes they're your best volunteers, and just unleash them in their local communities as an organization. They'll set up 5Ks and raise money for an organization. They'll go to a food bank and represent your company, and that's the best advertising you can buy. That's the best marketing you could ever ask for. And never take your employees for granted. You want to keep them engaged, and you want to have them be proud of the company they work with, because as soon as you lose, you're excited about what you're doing, you like the company that you're working for, the organization you're part of. Once that starts to go away, you're looking for something else. Unless you're locked into that job because that's the only thing you can do.
Right.
Most people want to be part of something bigger than themselves, and absolutely 100% of veterans want to be like that.
It just reminds me of like a soup kitchen. When you work in the soup kitchen and you're handing out the food to those that are in need of that food, right? Or you've been on the other side of that where you've received the food.
Yeah.
And all you want to do is just give back to those who had given you that food to keep you going.
Yeah.
You know, that changed me when I was younger. I went to do that, you know, and serve food, and we were like, are we really giving them the old popcorn balls to eat on their food tray? You know, we just had food that was given to the food bank.
Yeah, and you learn a lot.
You learn a lot,
doing that, and you learn humility, and you learn gratitude for what you do have. All those things are so important as a young person, and certainly as an older person as well. And we're a materialistic society, right? It's about giving gifts, and now over the holiday season, that's what we're all focused on. And maybe one less gift, and maybe donating to a food bank or to.
I drank powdered milk, bro.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Let me tell you, I have drinking that. Oh,
it's awful.
So I know. I grew up. My dad was SF, and I still had. He's like, a lot of kids eat Cheerios with water, Aaron. I was like, really? And he's like, yes. And I sat there, and we would just eat Cheerios with my water.
Yeah. That's something. And you know that there's, when you look at, like I mentioned the stat earlier, you know, 24% of active duty struggling to make ends meet and have food insecurity issues. To me, that's abhorrent as a country.
As a kid who grew up,
to me, that is that there is something significantly wrong with that. And I would have liked to have seen, and I think we're all happy, regardless of your political background, that the election's over. We're happy with that because you're not getting text messages and all these other sort of things, commercials and all that. But it would have been great to have more of a discussion on veterans issues in one of the debates.
There really wasn't any of that.
But it wasn't any of it.
No.
And to me, that only. So you could approach that from two distance. You could be very disappointed, and we are as a veteran community, or you could be energized by that and say we need to do a better job of making sure we're in the forefront of elected officials and campaigns. And so that's what we need to do. And the only way we're going to do that is that if you're interested in veterans causes, if you're interested in veterans, maybe you have a son, a daughter, your grandfather served, whatever, go to our website, join. We'll send you updates as you want. We're not sharing that information with anybody. We're not asking for money, but it's important for us to build those numbers so that, because it's a different situation when I walk into a senator's office and I'm representing 2 million veterans versus 10 million veterans. That's a different conversation.
Oh yeah. And you have data. You have the metrics.
And we have the metrics. And we're approaching it from an apolitical perspective, and they know that. And that's going to help open in their door because we're representing what veterans' families are telling us.
Yes.
Not something that I think is a great idea or my think tank thinks is a good idea or something that's going to help promote mission roll call. We're funded.
You're just getting you're aggregating all of these votes and polls from whoever's using mission roll calls, voting mechanisms, and you're taking that and trying to sit in front of these people to lobby them for veterans benefits.
Yeah.
On a whole.
Yeah, and educate them as well. You can't expect a freshman congressman or senator to know everything about veteran causes. They need to be educated by that.
That's right.
And it's the case with a number of different subjects, and there's complex issues with veterans' health care, with education, with assistance with finding a job, and all that. I mean. You think about it, the military does a wonderful job in taking a group of people, this kid from Chicago, this guy from rural, Utah, this dude who was surfing last week in California. We put them all together, and in a couple weeks, they are an organization, right? They look different. They walk taller. They are military now. They're part of something bigger than themselves. They're working together, whole different world, right? We can transform people in a matter of weeks. Think about if we had that same emphasis when they got out of the military to transform them to the civilian world. But we don't do that.
No, there's a guy that, when I got out, he was like, you're going to get this booklet, read it. These are your benefits. If you have any questions, call him.
Right.
It
Yeah,
was really just like,
same guy that gave your brief gave my brief, and it was just a waste of my time.
it was just like, okay, cool.
Right.
I held on to some of those thoughts, and if it wasn't for let's just say if I hadn't enlisted and if I hadn't gone through what I had gone through, I wouldn't have my home, my VA home loan. I wouldn't have all these things that were afforded you through the VA benefits. And someone out there thinking about joining, you know, the next step is just to go talk to a career counselor at like a military branch that you want to serve in, and ask them if they can help you. That's all you got to do. You don't have to commit unless you choose to commit.
Yeah, so there's just some basic things, blocking and tackling, that we need to do as organizations, and I hope we can improve quality of life for veterans, improve their access, more importantly, just improve the ability of us telling the story to the press, to the media, to elected officials, and to the general American public on what veterans do bring to our society, how important they are, what you can do. And
You're
I
in
think,
Chicago and you say depress, it sounds like depression.
yeah,
Depress, depress,
Depress.
depress. Oh,
Depress.
Depress
So
is on TV again.
Yeah.
I can't handle it.
That's great. So we have a lot of work to do. I have a passionate team on it.
Yes.
Great group of people. And
We're passionate with you, okay, here at SOFREP. I just want you to know that you have us as a
thank you.
vocal conduit to reach.
Yeah, and I appreciate your time
Yes,
today
I
to have this
appreciate
call,
you.
and I appreciate what you're doing to tell the story of what veterans do for our society, what they continue to do. I mean,
There are coaches.
and we need to take care of our own,
our mothers.
and this is one way to do that.
Yes, sir.
Thanks again for having me today.
Well, thanks for keeping me straight on the path with our conversation. I was looking to go boxing today, but you're like, Rad, I'm just going to like not box you today.
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
just tried to
"Fine.
pivot there a little bit.
I got you, sir. I got you. And I can respect that. I got an opponent somewhere out there that will get
I'm
back
sure
and
you'll
forth
find
with.
somebody today you can yell at.
But I hope you know where I come from, and my whole heart is like, I just want to just be the kindness that I see in the world today. So if I can just steal Jacob's saying right there that he told me.
Great saying.
that's what
We all can work on being more kind,
Yes,
more
it's contagious.
empathetic, and more giving of ourselves and our assets to others.
It never goes out of style.
Yes, sir.
Never, never, never. So on behalf of retired Lieutenant Colonel Jim Whaley with Mission Roll Call, a veterans advocacy group where you can go and check out all you need to learn about, you know, veterans benefits and reaching out to somebody who can give you an answer. Reach out to missionrollcall.org. They're not in it for any other reason except for you, the veteran, to find your way in a sea of unnavigatable waters that you're in, bro. If you're out there and you're like, which way do I go? Where am I going?
Great way to put it.
Mission Roll Call can be your compass, okay? And they can help point you in the right direction. So
Love it.
I love it too. And if you got nods, drop them down even better with your compass, okay? Because that looks cool. Come on now, come on.
Love
Now, let's see, what do I have to mention? Oh yeah, the book club, sofrep.com/book-club, our merch store with all of the branded goods. And again, Mission Roll Call with Jim, a regular here at SOFREP, and always welcome to keep me in check. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, and thank you to my listener and my viewer. And Brandon Webb, what's up, bro? All right, this is Rad saying peace.
You've been listening to SOFREP Radio.